Hello guys, welcome back to our anime moments. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Throne of Steel episode number 154 based on novel. So let's start. As the voice stopped at this point, the green traces disappeared. Right, that was the thin hope of survival that Kia had, which gave her the strength to lead all a bright glimmer of hope to fly away from Modu. The instant she came in contact with Long Houchen's corpse, this voice spread to her mind, telling her that Long Houchen still had a hope for survival. So no matter how sad Kia was, she brought Long Houchen away from there, to put him in safety in the Tower of Eternity, in order to find that hope of resurrection. That voice is, Wang Yuan blankly said. I know. It's that girl from the illusory paradise. No mistake, that's her. Lin Xin bounced wildly. Grabbing Lin Xin's shoulder, and Yu excitingly shouted, yes, yes. Yi Xiaolei. It's her, she has some kind of contract relationship with Captain, and is the one who came to our aid. So Captain has some hope of revival. There's a hope. The previous grim atmosphere was swept clean that instant, and everyone regained some hope. But even if they were doing their utmost to wipe their tears away, these tears were not wiped clean by any means. Unlike their previous tears, these were tears of excitement. Even if there was only a little hope, they had to grab it at any cost. Kia tightly embraced Long Houchen and her tears flowed once again. But she didn't keep immersing herself in the sadness, abruptly shouting, does anyone has a rope or a chain? Sima Xian responded, I do. Then he took out a dark golden chain from his storage ring. This chain reached about 5 meters length, just like his gigantic ball of light's chain. It was obviously used as a spare one. Kia took this chain, holding Long Houchen in a standing position, as she looked at the top of the first floor of the tower, speaking in a categorical way, 7 days. We only have a time of 7 days. In this time, we must climb to the top of the Tower of Eternity and obtain the inheritance of the Holy Necromancer, slumbering Calamity Elux. Yes, everyone from Bright Glimmer of Hope agreed boisterously. That spurt of vigor gave the group a sort of torrential feeling. I am going to. The same words came almost simultaneously from both Yang Wenjiao and Du Yi. Their wounds were much better, and although fighting would be a bit difficult, how could they cower at such a time? Kia didn't say much more, only telling the nearby Wang Yuan, help me lay Houchen on my back with this chain. With him fighting alongside us, there is nothing that could possibly stop our advance. Yes? Wang Yuan raised no objection and immediately got to work. The third girl of the group, Chen Yinga, also let go of Yang Wenjiao's embrace, and helped place Long Houchen's body on Kia's back. The tall and robustly built Long Houchen on Kia's back visibly made a baffling scene. His arms and legs had to be wrapped around Kia's body, and in the end his legs had to be coiled around her waist, to bind him firmly. Feeling Long Houchen's weight, the determination in Kia's eyes grew even further in intensity. In a flash of grey light, the sickle of the god of death appeared in her grasp. Maybe this was due to the recovery of her memories, but the instant it appeared in her hand, the brilliance emitted by this divine tool was completely different from before. Letting out blasts of killing intent, the sickle became even more sparklingly radiating. We are going. Saying that, Kia took large strides toward the second floor of the Tower of Eternity. The members of Bright Glimmer of Hope plus Zhong Fangfang, Yang Wenjiao and Du Yi on the rear formed a total of 9 persons, who stepped up the stairs directly. The trials on the first and second floor were all already completed ahead of time, and they had the 4 Holy Guards' approval. And now, the 4 Holy Guards inside the eternal melody on Kia's chest all became her guards. Only, they couldn't give help in their fights inside the Tower of Eternity. After entering the second floor, everyone released their spiritual wings and headed deep ahead. They had never entered the third floor of the Tower of Eternity before, after they came to learn from the divine snail of Sun and Moon, that Elux had put the human world in a terrible state and was the main cause of their extremely weakened state that followed. The group never kept going up these stairs. But now was different. Kia was taking the place of Long Houchen to become that successor, and had to succeed at any cost to resurrect Long Houchen. They had not only to continue to go ahead, but moreover reach the 7th floor where they would be able to obtain the inheritance of the slumbering Calamity Elux. So, they didn't dare tarry in the slightest. 7 days, that was all the time they had. If Long Houchen wasn't resurrected by then, they would have no more chance ever again. Now was no time to ponder over the difficulties that would be encountered on the next 4 floors. Even if they would face trials on the Demon God Emperor's level, Kia wouldn't stop their advance. If Long Houchen were to really die, she would definitely follow him in that fate. Very rapidly, they reached the passage from the second to the third floor. Then Kia turned back and looked at her comrades following behind her. Hanyu announced her, "Kia, until Captain resurrects, please be our captain. Issue your orders, and even at the cost of our lives, we will give you our help until the very end." Kia took a deep breath. She didn't voice her thanks, but nodded vigorously, and was the first one to go through the teleporting passage. With a glint, a fantastic teleportation brought the group to the third floor. Right after entering, everyone felt a chill at the same time, as the surrounding atmosphere visibly became sticky. This was a world where they no longer needed to remain afloat, and where they could see just an expanse of darkness. The ground was made of black bricks, and in the sky was a dark purple moon. Upon arriving here, they felt as if they were in another world. And this world seemed endless. As far as the eye can see, there was no end to the scenery, only endless darkness. In the midst of this endless darkness, countless deep purple flames pulsed. These were soul fires, once characteristic of skeleton soldiers. Right, in this third floor of the Tower of Eternity, what came to their sight were an endless sea of skeletons. And they were accompanied only by an endless expanse of darkness. In that place there only existed a darkness essence accompanied with a dense deathly stillness. But no matter what the enemies were, all members of Bright Glimmer of Hope only had determination in their eyes. They only had one goal, and that was to go through all the obstructions to resurrect Long Houchen. To the others' surprise, Kia didn't immediately break through that sea of skeletons, looking cold and calm, instead of getting in a hysterical state of frenzy. She really wanted to recklessly make her way through, but she couldn't. That's because she knew that they only had one chance, and couldn't waste the slightest time. So she couldn't go fight blindly, but had to go through all the trials in the shortest time, which was her current objective. In the first and second floor, we were tested by the 4 great holy gods, whose elements were fire, ice, earth and wind, which are the 4 most fundamental elements. From how it looks, we are going to face darkness element in this trial of the third floor. As the holy gods had told us before, they are a total of 12. So the one who will be testing us here is the holy god of darkness element. The skeletons in the Tower of Eternity are different from the ones from Haoyue's world. Everyone has already experienced their strength, so many skeletons are enough to stall us until death. There won't be any end if we try to kill them all, and who knows how long it will take. So we mustn't go kill them blindly, but look for that holy god of darkness and defeat it to pass through this trial. Kia's clear voice reverberated in the third floor. Her speech gradually calmed down the impetuous others, who found out to their surprise that even without Long Houchen's command, Kia, who became their temporary captain, took that duty perfectly, managing to still remain cool-headed. A feeling of confidence arose in every demon hunter from Bright Glimmer of Hope. Right, it was long since the establishment of this demon hunt squad that it revolved around 2 cores. Only, Kia's brilliance was concealed behind Long Houchen so far. The current Kia was not only the one chosen by the god of death, but had all her original memories back. With Long Houchen dead and having only one chance of resurrecting him, Kia didn't have the slightest heart to keep concealing and exercising restraint. She had to lead the group with her all to win over this last chance. "Hanyu," Kia called out. "Yes." Hanyu stepped forward. Kia ordered, "In a bit, we will be launching all-out attacks. When the battle starts, that holy guard of darkness concealed in the midst of the skeletons surely won't stay undisturbed. Use the best of your demonic eye commander to find him and lock him down." "Yes." Hanyu immediately responded while he summoned the demonic eye commander. Zhong Fangfang, forward. Yang Wenjiao, Duan Yi, and Hanyu, behind. The rest goes as usual. Yinga, don't expend your spiritual energy on other summons than McDull. Go. With her last call, Kia waved the sickle of the god of death in her hand. Zhong Fangfang stood behind his heavy shield while moving over toward that sea of skeletons. The skeletons were all black, just like this world. The only light produced in this world was that which came out from the soul fire burning in their eyes. When Kia's group moved, the tide of skeletons also moved, flocking endlessly, and holding high various weapons to attack them. Extending the spiritual wings on her back, Kia didn't remain with the team. She originally should be a wandering unit as an assassin. In a flash, she outpaced Zhong Fangfang and pierced through the front line, like a sharp dagger thrusting fiercely in the midst of the sea of skeletons. As early as 2 years ago, they had already passed the trials on the first 2 floors and could enter the third one but didn't do so at all. Now that they had finally entered, the trial in this third floor should not be too difficult to them. But upon really charging into the sea of skeletons, Kia immediately felt a massive pressure. The trial of this third floor was above the second floor in difficulty by far. This was not just a mere stepping point, but an even larger test, not a 1 versus 1, but a team battle. In a flicker of grey radiance, a large area of skeletons were reduced to fragments as the sickle of the god of death was swept around. In just one strike, Kia extinguished the soul fire of over 20 skeletons, but she could sense that these skeletons actually had the strength of human powerhouses of the 6th step. They didn't have as good battle techniques as the Holy Guards, but their numbers were simply endless. But right at this time, their strength as a team became visible. For halos of light spread out almost simultaneously, covering an enormous area. These 4 golden halos were naturally released by the 4 temple knights in their ranks. Longhauchen was not present, but their team was still formed mostly with knights. And they were all the top of the younger generation of knights, temple knights of the 7th step. For halos released the same ability, the Guardian Knight's halo of holy protection. Able to raise the efficiency of any attacks on enemies of darkness attributes, it also weakened the elemental attribute and speed of the targets in question. Because of being used simultaneously by 4 temple knights, this halo managed to cover an area of several hundred square meters. The incoming sea of skeleton was greatly slowed down, immediately overpowered by Kia, who stood on the front line. This time, Kia's terrifying offensive strength was fully displayed. Having recovered her memories, she also recovered the whole formation she had as an assassin since her childhood. The sickle of the god of death in her hand descended like a real incarnation of death. Grey glints filled with terrifying destructive power came down on the battlefield, breaking a large area of skeletons in pieces everywhere it passed. Under her lead, all bright glimmer of light went through the sea of skeletons at a frightening speed. The demonic Eye Commander was now floating above Hanyu's head, releasing incorporeal waves of mental force through the skeletons' ranks, looking for the main culprit behind their creation. Wang Yuan and Simus Yan defended the sidelines. With Longhauchen's death, their hearts had been repressing extreme sorrow and anger, which was all vented out on this sea of skeletons. Their golden and silvery figures alone took out all the enemies on the sidelines, turning into fine powders all the black skeletons on whom their attacks landed. Lin Xin did not stay idle either. The fire cloud staff launched a meteor shower like a magic cannon, indiscriminately bombing the incoming skeletons. As they attacked these skeletons, everyone gradually gained some benefits. The same situation as in the first floor of the Tower of Eternity took place. In the first floor, they didn't encounter too many skeletons, but every one of them supplied with a boost of 10 spiritual energy, causing the first burst of growth in the Demon Hunt squad, surpassing their boundaries to make them the #1 Demon Hunt squad of the younger generation. For now, these skeletons didn't likewise supply 10 spiritual energy for each of them, but every one killed boosted their spiritual energy by 1 unit. Don't look down on this single unit. A single 1 or 2 killed made nothing obvious, but all the hundreds of them that were killed provided hundreds of spiritual energy. If Longhauchen hadn't just gotten killed by the Demon God Emperor, they would surely all be cheering for this formidable discovery. There would be no need to actually look for the Guard of Darkness, they would only need to keep making a killing to greatly increase their spiritual energy. But this was impossible to them now. They had to break through this stage the fastest possible to resurrect their captain in time. Suddenly Kia, who was the deepest in the front lines just ahead, made a sudden turn in midair, and returned to the midst of her comrades' formation. Halt! In a low shout, she stuck a sickle of the god of death to the ground. An incarnation of death slowly took shape behind her, becoming distinct rapidly. Crossing both its hands, a mystical symbol took shape in the hands of that incarnation of death. The symbols were all white and rapidly formed a spherical ring of light, constituted with countless microscopic particles. Kia stepped back while Zhong Fangfang immediately stepped up imposingly, rushing toward the large tide of black skeleton soldiers. His left feet tread on the ground, and as he kept hold of his shield, the heavy sword in his right hand was held upwards. Zhong Fangfang abruptly shouted loudly, and countless golden glints burst out from his sword, rendering an enormous surrounding area gold-colored. Light of trial. Of course, these skeletons of the 6th step didn't all immediately die under the illumination of light of trial, but their soul fire pulsed violently, as they drew back in panic. Some closer ones were smashed to pieces at once, and the surrounding breath of darkness depleted to a large degree. This instant, Kia's spell was completed. Get purified. These words came out coldly from her mouth, as the incarnation of death condensed in the air spread abruptly. With an extending white halo, those black skeletons all turned white, rendered motionless. The sudden appearance of a large area of white skeletons in this world of darkness gave off a feeling of extreme strangeness. Immediately, these white skeletons turned into white vapor, rising into the air toward the incarnation of death. Their souls were absorbed in the midst of that expanse of white, making the grey incarnation of death only more substantial. A magnificent grey armor covered his whole body, seemingly every piece of the armor was formed with sharp blades glittering sparklingly. The only area unclear to view was its face, looking as hazy as the night, abstruse beyond compare. Kia soared once again in a movement, appearing in front of Zhong Fangfang. Waving the sickle of the god of death, she returned to lead her comrades to keep fighting. In the mere previous instant, she had purified over 1,000 black skeletons, raising her spiritual energy by over 1,000 units as well. This moment, the distant black skeletons came to a sudden stop, getting out the way and forming a passage. This instant, the black skeletons all quieted down, and immediately, tinkling sounds of a horse's hooves rose. These clatters became more and more distinctly heard. A stalwart figure came to the group's view. This stalwart figure was entirely clad in black armor, mounted on a huge horse armored as well. The two of them dispersed a dark purple halation, and upon his appearance, the dark essence in the air immediately rose sharply. In an area extending to 100 meters around him, dark purple blossoms of light were seen rising up. Coming out on his own? This Black Knight coming to view should be the one testing them. The trials in the Tower of Eternity were hard, but certainly not impossible to pass. If the black skeletons in here were really inexhaustible, even a powerhouse of the level of the demon god emperor would sooner or later be stalled to death. So these inexhaustible skeletons were only a kind of preemptive test toward them. Because a certain amount of black skeletons were killed, this Black Knight, which was very possibly the 8th Holy Guard, appeared as a matter of fact in front of them. "Come have a go with me," Kia shouted and immediately rushed forward. The sickle of the god of death was placed on her side, its sharp end leaving a deep mark on the ground. A fierce murderous spirit burst out instantly from her body, and that instant, Kia's whole body was covered in a sparklingly translucent grey drizzle. She very rapidly approached the center of that sea of skeletons, and the time she tried to breach through that passage, the black skeletons on both sides threw themselves at her, attempting to stop her advance. Kia had a cold demeanor but a fiery temper, burning like an inexhaustible flame. In that very moment, all kinds of memories from her time with Long Houchen resurged. No matter how powerful the enemy was, she would only keep advancing. Nothing else than death could stop her advance anymore. That incarnation of death that had just absorbed a large amount of souls followed Kia forward, just like her shadow. But it didn't use any apparent abilities, only releasing the same grey color as Kia from its body, an extremely auspicious grey. Zhong Fangfang and the rest of Bright Glimmer of Hope followed behind Kia at a rapid speed. In the meantime, as Kia faced off the encirclement of the black skeletons on the sidelines, they also breached through this sea of skeletons. How could these black skeletons of the 6th step simply block their advance? Just like before, they kept advancing and were rapidly catching up with Kia. Every wave of the sickle of the god of death in Kia's hands was certain to take the lives of many skeletons. After getting killed by her weapon, these black skeletons all turned into grey streams of air, pouring themselves into the shadow of death in the air. In a mere moment, Kia took the lead to finally reach the Black Knight emitting particles of purple color. These skeletons visibly became more powerful with the addition of the Black Knight. Kia's speed of advance was lowered, and the skeletons glinted in purple, becoming far more powerful than the previous skeletons, be it in offensive power or resistance. Kia had therefore to protect herself, as well as Long Houchen carried on her back, and couldn't advance prematurely. But even so, these purple skeletons were still decimated one by one in front of her sickle of the god of death, as she approached the Black Knight. The Black Knight had a purplish black flame pulsing inside his eyes. His look was focused on Kia, slowly taking up the 5-meter-long spear hanging on his horse's saddle. This knight was over 3 meters tall, and that height reached over 4 meters with the addition of that mount, a skeleton horse extending over 2 meters. This was simply a giant compared to Kia. Purplish black flames instantly rose on the top of his blazing spear, and the skeleton horse's front limbs were raised. Immediately the air in the scope of the purplish light became suddenly sticky. Kia felt clearly that her body became suddenly stagnant, and immediately, that myriad of purple dots of light gathered to the spear in his hand. In a flash of purple electric light, it was thrust at Kia like an electric shock. Powerful. In just one move, this Black Knight startled the whole Bright Glimmer of Hope. The aura liberated by this guy clearly reached the standard of a powerhouse of the 9th step. Even if that was the initial stage of the 9th step, that was still quite a thing. What's more, from the interaction they had with the other Holy Guards, their strengths were definitely not limited to their ranking. They had all mastered martial techniques far above powerhouses of the same grade. Kia didn't dodge, as a comrade was at her back, dodging would just make Zhong Fangfang bear the brunt. But right at this time, a golden shadow streaked across her side, turning entirely purple in the midst of its elevation. Myriads of streaks of thunder appeared, bombarding all directions. That was Sima Xian's purple thunder electric frenzy. Sima Xian was not assisting Kia in resisting the Black Knight's attack, but assisting her in disposing of the surrounding skeletons, so that she could focus wholeheartedly on the Black Knight. This was a sign of their trust in each other. They all believed that Kia would be able to deal with this attack of the enemy. If Long Haochen was the one confronting this attack of the Black Knight, he would without doubt stop it with the divine snail shield of sun and moon. But Kia wasn't Long Haochen. She didn't have such formidable defensive power, so if she just defended passively, there's no way she would stop this mighty attack which reached the 9th step in power. As an assassin, her greatest force was her attack, so all she could do was to meet force with force. Her left feet abruptly treading forward, continuous overlapping images of Kia appeared behind her. The sickle of the god of death struck forward, grey crystal condensing on its front end, precisely striking the dark purple glow. This instant, the air seemed to congeal, as a strange scene came to view. The series of overlaying images on Kia's back abruptly flashed down again, and as she turned, similar to an illusion, uncountable overlaying Kia's took shape. Immediately, the sickle of the god of death in her hand lit up, and in the midst of its grey radiance, the Black Knight's purple glow was obliterated. The black skeletons surrounding Kia were all smashed away by the purple thunder, so only one enemy was standing in front of her at the moment. A large figure rushed upwards. That was Sima Xian. In the air, he followed after his energetic ball of light, his spiritual wings extended. The whole energetic ball of light was glinting in purple light, and Sima Xian's chest was shining in a scarlet-colored brilliance. Sima Xian's previous spot was already taken over by Yang Wenjiao, which didn't create any hole in the formation. Blocking the Black Knight's attack, Kia's face looked slightly pale, but she didn't pause. Her figure flashed, appearing in front of that Black Knight at rapid speed, practically the same as teleportation. But one must know that she was carrying Long Haochen on her back, yet this seemed not to affect her speed in the slightest. The spear in the Black Knight's hand flashed, immediately turning into a large shade shrouding Kia. In the meantime, a dark purple halo rippled from his body, only reaching a diameter of 10 meters, but rising from the ground with a solidified feel. The darkness essence in this third floor of the Tower of Eternity immediately rushed forth to him. This felt a bit close to Long Haochen's night ability storing power, except that Long Haochen needed to remain unmoving to use it, while the Black Knight didn't suffer this restriction. As long as his body would remain in the area of this halo, the storing power would persist, making his fighting strength even more terrible. Kia acted as if she didn't see all of it. In front of his myriad spear strikes, Kia's body suddenly turned illusory, and all the illusory images were shattered by the spear strikes. Her real body appeared behind the Black Knight. The sickle of the god of death became ready to strike then, aiming right at the Black Knight's back. The Black Knight didn't turn back, because he was far too late. The back of his spear approached, pointed toward the sharp end of the sickle of the god of death. Kia's body shook violently. It was natural that she had no way to compare with the enemies in spiritual energy. But a whole piece of that black spear was sliced by her sickle of the god of death. And more terrible, a multiple-layered blade projection came out like a lotus flower from the sickle of the god of death. It shrouded that Black Knight all the way from behind, giving him no opportunity at all. The Black Knight was also a tough opponent. Making prompt decisions, he squatted down from the horse and abruptly dashed forward, as a dark purple shield made of energy appeared behind him. The sickle of the god of death really had a terrifying offensive power. In a mere second, that shield of energy was crushed and disappeared, but that managed to stall some time for Black Knight. Turning, the spear in his hand was swept horizontally. Bang! With a stuffy groan, Kia's body was immediately swept back. It wasn't that she didn't think of dodging, but she couldn't at all. The instant of that Black Knight's move, all the surrounding air congealed, and her speed dropped greatly. This very moment, a violent surge of thunder rumbled. Nearby came down a purple pillar of light, rushing straight toward the Black Knight. Sima Xian's godly purple thunder cannon was done gathering power since long ago, and was only waiting for the Black Knight to show a gap. And he was not the only one making a move. A resonant phoenix cry was concealed in the midst of the bombardment of thunder. The phoenix of blue fire lifted itself high and dashed at the Black Knight behind the purple thunder. Sima Xian and Lin Xin were using their full power. Purple godly thunder cannon and phoenix of blue fire were their strongest attacks. Bright glimmer of hope wouldn't let a single person fight alone. Kia having drawn the Black Knight's attention, their attacks displayed the greatest efficiency. Lin Xin's Phoenix of Blue Fire had an enormous change compared to 2 years ago. First, it was much smaller in volume, and didn't reach 2 meters even with its 2 wings unfolded, looking just like a large bird. But this Phoenix of Blue Fire was much prettier than before. With no flames rising around its body, it looked like a perfect sculpture of crystal. 3 pretty tail feathers were undulating on its back, standing out even in the midst of the pretty hairs all over its body, making it feel just like a living creature. Its eyes were glinting brilliantly, filled with intense flames. This Black Knight was really powerful. Flying past Kia to confront the incoming attack, he suddenly jumped from the bone horse's back, raising his upper body and blowing a dark purple flame which turned into a shield in front of him. But how could this dark purple fire possibly resist Simus Yan's gigantic ball of light wielded alongside the evolved spiritual stove of godly purple thunder? The shield was instantly crushed and the attack from the spiritual stove of godly purple thunder bombarded the skeleton horse. Immediately, the skeleton horse let out a loud sound as if clashing against the opposite wall and producing a large bang. As the Dark Knight was knocked back, the horse's head and half its body were reduced to shreds, the Dark Knight naturally getting thrown down as a result. Against the Panther Demon God Angzer, Simus Yan had managed to fend off the enemy using this purple godly thunder cannon, and that was when the latter was in his demon god transformed form. Neither the Black Knight nor its mount could compare with that Panther Demon God in strength, so naturally they couldn't stop this blow. However, the skeleton horse's sacrifice was not futile at all. Although it was reduced to pieces in the explosion, this blocked a great part of the purple godly thunder cannon's attack strength, and only some aftermath landed on the Black Knight. But purple light lingered in the knight's whole body, slightly reducing its speed. And at this time came Lin Xin's Blue Fire Phoenix. A resonant phoenix cry finally resounded in the whole 3rd floor of the Tower of Eternity, as the knight fell to the ground, pointing his spear forward to shoot a spear projection at the Blue Fire Phoenix's head in an attempt to destroy it. But the Blue Fire Phoenix suddenly became stagnant in midair, abruptly turning into a blue light in the air and instantly disappearing. This was a needle-sized blue light which took a flash to pierce through the Black Knight's spear. The Black Knight clearly sensed the immense threat. As it let out a shrill, an intense purple light rose around his body, where all the darkness aura gained in substance. A ball of dark color, wrapped in purple, lit up on his chest. His body came to a standstill, and as the purple light curled up, he seemed just like a sculpture which had been standing for a long time. This was clearly a technique of passive defense, quite close to divine obstruction. The next instant, the power of the spiritual stove of Blue Fire Phoenix flared up. The spear in the Black Knight's hand melted from the tip, and the blue color extended at a frantic speed, reaching its arm in the blink of an eye. Just looking at that Black Knight's spear and right arm, one could shockingly see all of it vaporizing under the blue light, leaving not a single trace behind. And the blue light kept extending through its body, locking onto that purplish black ball on the skeleton's chest, and clashing intensely. The Blue Fire Phoenix was just too powerful. That terrifying temperature already caused twists in the nearby air. Although that black ball made it stop, the Black Knight's right arm still dissolved swiftly, up to the chest. And this time, a sharp flash of grey swang at the Black Knight's back. The incarnation of death that had appeared priorly then shot a grey ray into the sharp flash of grey. The flash of grey caused the purplish black ball to shatter in response, at the same time as the left side of the Black Knight's body. The Blue Fire Phoenix, having nothing to stop it anymore, immediately extended at an astonishing speed, igniting the Dark Knight's whole body thoroughly in the blink of an eye. A purplish black flame extricated from the Black Knight's head, and a quite sharp voice resounded, "8th Holy Guard, listening to your orders." As these words came to an end, he turned into a purple glow, disappearing inside the eternal melody hanging on Kia's neck. The whole process from the start of the battle to its end wasn't very long. Even Kia herself didn't expect that they would actually vanquish this 8th Holy Guard so easily. Without a doubt, the greatest contributors in this battle were Simus Yan and Lin Xin. Purple Godly Thunder Cannon and the Phoenix of Blue Fire were the greatest contributors in disposing of this Knight of Darkness. Kia herself didn't get to show a display of her full power at all. Along with the death of the Black Knight, the surrounding world of darkness immediately distorted, and those black skeletons also disappeared in these twists. When the surroundings became more clearly visible, they found out that they were now in an extended pathway. This place was a bit similar to the 1st floor of the Tower of Eternity, except that the surrounding pillars were all black. Afar off, a drizzling white curtain of light came to sight. Kia took a deep breath and nodded to Lin Xin and Simus Yan. Right now, the two of them were already sitting cross-legged. Simas Yan was better off, as he had the Scarlet Dragon armor to weaken the backlash of the spiritual stove of godly purple thunder on his body. It was just his spiritual energy that was rather used up. But Lin Xin was not so well off. His spiritual stove of blue fire phoenix gained a much greater might than before, but it also made the backlash even stronger, and the consumption of spiritual energy considerable. As a reminder, they were facing a powerhouse of the 9th step, but even this Black Knight of the 9th step was melted in front of his blue fire phoenix. This was his strongest attack, actually far more powerful than Vulcan's finger. If it were not to gain as much time as possible to save Long Houchen, this wasn't a move he would use casually. Simas Yan said to Kia, "Vice Captain, don't worry about the two of us. Now that we have passed through this trial, this place is already safe. Just keep advancing with the others, we will be joining after recovering a bit." Only light attribute users or Kia's death attribute would be able to recover their spiritual energy in the Tower of Eternity. The other individuals would be unable to rely on the elemental essence in there and need to use magical crystals. Right now, Lin Xin was holding a fire magical crystal of the 8th step in each hand, rapidly recovering his spiritual energy. These were not magical crystals coming out from demons but magical beasts, because only that way can it be devoid of darkness attributes. Keep advancing. Kia nodded to the others and took the lead to enter in those white curtains, out of place with the rest of the world made of darkness. Yang Wenjiao and Duan Yi currently had some feelings of astonishment. Although their cultivation also reached the 7th step, they understood clearly in the previous battle that every member of Bright Glimmer of Hope was far stronger than them. But as one must know, they used to stand as the central pillar of their respective teams, and stronger by a considerable gap compared to the rest of their team. But in front of the members of Bright Glimmer of Hope, all they could do was to resist some of the skeleton soldiers, and because their injuries were not healed completely, even the mere act of resisting against the black skeletons felt strenuous. By contrast, amongst Bright Glimmer of Hope, the main offense was ensured by Kia, Simas Yan, and Lin Xin, whose joint attack could even kill a powerhouse of the 9th step. And that was an overwhelming kill, as that Black Knight was not given the slightest chance to display his strength before being killed in their hands. Long Houchen and Kia's strength aside, even Lin Xin and Simas Yan were already so powerful. The powerful attacks they just used were even totally unheard of by Yang Wenjiao and Duan Yi. But it was a fact that the matching of Kia and these two managed to defeat the Black Knight effortlessly. Actually, this was mainly due to the dominance of their equipment plus the launch of their full-force greatest attack. In what looked like a short battle, Lin Xin and Simas Yan had been going all out and using their trump cards. The holy guards in this Tower of Eternity were certainly powerful, but they all had a common weak point, their equipment. Simply speaking, if that Black Knight was clad in Long Houchen's golden foundation armor, they may not necessarily have ended up victorious even by spending 10 times more time. Kia's sickle of the God of Death was a divine tool, and Simas Yan's energetic ball of light reached the epic tier. No one in Bright Glimmer of Hope didn't have at least a weapon of the legendary tier. The white curtains of light were in front of their eyes. Going through the Black Knight's trial didn't mean that they had already cleared the 3rd floor of the Tower of Eternity. Based on the previous 2 floors, they had only cleared half of the trials on this floor. And the later trials would only keep increasing in difficulty. Only more cruel fights were awaiting them. After Kia stepped out and entered the white curtains of light, Zhong Fangfang, Wen Yuan, and Chen Yinga followed. Stepping through the white curtains, everyone couldn't help but cough lightly, because the air behind was just far too different, making an overwhelming difference. Previously, they were in a world of absolute darkness, but at that moment, what came to their sight after passing through the white curtains was an incomparably intense holy aura. The surrounding darkness was already non-existent, replaced by a boundless holy light. The pillars coming to sight on the 2 sides were identical, but spread out a golden gloss filled with holiness. The ground was also entirely gold-colored, with elegant designs extending all over. No seas of skeletons were present. This second part of the 3rd floor was entirely empty. On the end of the 3rd floor was another sculpture of the holy necromancer, slumbering Calamity Elux. Under the sculpture, a single man was sitting cross-legged. A white magic gown of light attribute enveloped all his body, and as he was looking down slightly, Kia's group was unable to discern his face. He was sitting below Elux's sculpture, and seemed like he was seated for a boundless time, and appeared to be waiting for the arrival of Kia's group. Although they were facing a single enemy now, Kia's crew looked even more concentrated. Right, because the enemy standing in front of them was by himself, his strength would undoubtedly be even greater, at least far stronger than the Black Knight. Kia turned back to her comrades, and told Chen Yinga, "Yinga, do not intervene. We will be mostly relying on your power on the next floor. The others, come with me." As she said that, Kia's figure flashed, already clashing against that light elemental mage who was clad in a white gown the next instant. As an assassin, she was obviously the greatest candidate against a mage. Han Yu, Yang Wenjiao and Duan Yi felt clearly their spiritual energy being boosted enormously in the midst of that holy aura. The three of them immediately put into use their halo abilities, attaching them to Kia. Although Yang Wenjiao was a retribution knight, he didn't charge out. With his wounds having yet to heal up, if this enemy was even stronger than the previous one, him charging would have no use at all. Wang Yuan followed, charging alongside Kia. A fierce reek of blood instantly leapt behind her, and one could faintly see a red glow shoot up, turning into an illusory image with the same appearance as Wang Yuan. Wang Yuan's murderous spirit was greatly different from Kia's. Kia's murderous spirit was full of a deathly aura, while Wang Yuan's murderous spirit was permeated with a bloody aura. One was originally an attribute of the user herself, while the other one was produced through incessant slaughter. The two murderous spirits seemed to complement each other. Under their full power, this brilliance rooted in an extreme holiness. The light mage made his move, his body launching itself aloft the instant Kia's group started charging. A golden staff appeared in his hand. Pointing it forward, it oscillated with wave-like golden ripples coming from it. Having Long Houchen on her back, Kia was unable to immediately enter the state of invisibility. But she was the fastest of all, bright glimmer of hope. She was already accelerating quickly the instant she charged, and was able to close the distance to the light elemental mage below 200 meters in just 2 flashes. But after she approached closer than 100 meters, that soft light halation blocked her. Feeling a kind of gauze on her, Kia found out upon contact with the golden halation that her speed plummeted completely and she was completely bound. Like that, her movement was in slow motion. A grey radiance filled with dense murderous instant immediately burst out from the sickle of the god of death. A divine tool was a divine tool, and immediately the light magic of unknown name ruptured in front of the tyrannical sickle of the god of death. As Kia was moving forward and prepared to keep charging, that ruptured golden light coiled around her body. Wang Yuan faced the same issue as Kia. The two of them were about 100 meters from the light mage, and found it difficult to keep charging at him. A twisting radiance swept across at this time, charging straight at the light mage. It was the demonic Eye Commander. That light mage slowly lifted up his head while emitting powerful soul waves. Under his cloak, one could see a pair of pulsing golden flames in his eyes. The demonic Eye Commander's psychic attack had yet to reach out, as it was repulsed by that powerful soul force. It didn't manage to bring the slightest injury to this light mage. Waving once again his staff, he continued a downcast chant. Immediately, a few knights appeared on Kia and Wang Yuan's side. Due to the unknown spell used by this light mage earlier, a golden halo blocked their way, stopping them from advancing any further. This is the spell of the 9th step, Divine Binding. Yang Wenjiao shouted suddenly, but wasn't this spell long since lost? How could it appear here? Damn it, it's even instacast. A spell of the 9th step, and without even the use of any incantation. That was something close to the level of forbidden spell, so no wonder they would be stopped still. If that was just a spell of the 8th step, Kia absolutely would not, by any means, be stopped so thoroughly with the sickle of the god of death in her hand. The light mage's incantation was ongoing, and everyone knew that if it completed, the group would hardly manage to resist it. A mage's offensive power is far above a warrior's, especially this light mage that appeared right after the Black Knight. Don't get wrong thoughts because of the extremely cozy feeling of light aura, this trial is surely a lot more challenging than the previous one. And most of all, how could they break through Divine Binding? This time, Kia suddenly called out, Yuan. Wang Yuan, who entered through the curtain of light about the same time as Kia, exchanged looks with her the instant she heard her call, filled with tacit understanding. Although Kia just had her memories recovered, the memories she had gained after her amnesia were not raised by the past ones, but merged thoroughly, so their mutual understanding still had yet to disappear. 1, 2. Kia started to count in a slow motion. Her look was on that light mage from beginning to end. Except for Yang Wenjiao and Duan Yi, the rest of Bright Glimmer of Hope was visibly calm and stopped charging at the protective barrier. That was mutual understanding, without even need for Kia to say anything, they all understood her aim. 3. Go! Kia shouted. As watched in shock Yang Wenjiao and Duan Yi's, the silver light on Wang Yuan amplified greatly, and the next instant she disappeared only to reappear in front of the light mage. Orange and scarlet colors interweaved in Bloodstorm, bringing an incomparable burst of bloodlust. A pitch-black crack appeared in a flash in front of the light mage, the innate ability of Bloodstorm, Dimensional Storm. In fact, now that Bloodstorm had reached the epic tier through incessant slaughters, its might was as different from the time before as sky and earth. In front of that intense light essence, it launched instant cuts. The terrifying Dimensional Storm produced humming sounds upon contact with that defensive spell of the 9th step, and the space inside was torn into countless chips. This video will end here.